boy. I will clear our path.
Some games have already achieved perfection. Whether you like them or not doesn't matter, because they have shaped the industry into what it is today, and they're all fun to boot. Anyway, here are the 13 video games that we give a perfect 10 out of 10 that you must play at least once in your lifetime. To begin with, we're talking about Marvel's Spider-Man. 2018 was a remarkable year for Sony, and Spider-Man stands out as a game everyone should experience. The storytelling is engaging, the visuals are impressive, and it serves as a perfect introduction to open-world gaming for those new to the genre. Sure, the minimap might get cluttered with various objectives and collectibles reminiscent of Ubisoft games, but Spider-Man handles this aspect more intelligently. True, the crime-fighting segments can get a bit repetitive, but swinging through New York City as Spider-Man is a dream realized. Marvel's Spider-Man is more than a great game, it's a fantastic entry point for gamers. Then, at number 12, we have God of War 2018, a game I often say transcends the medium. It's just that good. It's a fantastically well-executed story, with flawless gameplay mechanics all packaged in this brilliant no-cut camera. Every facet of the game comes together, creating this perfect package, and you just can't help but be impressed. The story is awesome, and you don't really need to play the previous God of War games to get a lot out of it, but it definitely helps. But like I said, I've said it many times, it sets a new standard for storytelling and presentation of video games, and not a lot of stuff has quite met that standard in practice, if I'm being real.
Big tower on a volcano. Looks like the end's in sight, huh?
And number 11 is Uncharted 4. While the Uncharted series has been a PlayStation staple for a long time, Uncharted 4 really stands out, and it's due to the jump in storytelling. It is so much more, and this is such an overused word, but cinematic than even previous Uncharted games, to the point where, like, Naughty Dog met a point here, and I think The Last of Us Part 2 carries that torch pretty well. I'm not saying other companies aren't capable of this, but we have not seen it at the level we have with Sony. And like, is this the high point? Is this the final achievement so far of top-level Sony storytelling action game? They're probably going higher after The Last of Us Part 2, but Uncharted 4 is really damn good. And number 10 is Shadow of the Colossus, another game by some of the same folks that made The Last Guardian, Shadow of the Colossus. It's a lot more accessible, if you ask me, than Ico or The Last Guardian. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't make either of those two games bad. I love everything that they've made, and I love them both for similar and different reasons. Shadow of the Colossus, however, is a masterpiece for everybody, I think. There's not really a lot you have to learn in terms of the idea of the game. It's a game about killing gigantic monsters, so adrenaline-wise, it fulfills that, but in story and narrative, it also gives you exactly what the other two games do. You play as a young man attempting to revive a loved one by defeating these massive creatures called Colossi. And the game is both a spectacle and a masterpiece that bridges, I would say, art and pure gameplay. The minimalist narrative leaves you with a sense of mystery, invites you to piece the story together. And despite being a game about boss battles, it's intentionally short because that's what it needs to be. There's not a lot of meat on these bones, but the meat is very, very good. It's a bit like Beautiful Joe, meaning From Software kind of stuff. I know that probably sounds like a bizarre comparison if you haven't played the game, but if you have played the game, then you probably get what I'm talking about. Anyway, Shadow of the Colossus is a fantastic game that if you haven't played, you should, for real. Transitioning to number 9, we have The Last Guardian. A decade-long development period is significant, with the creation process being as grand as the game itself. This PlayStation 4 game embodies Team Ico's signature elements: stunning art direction, a minimalistic user interface, an enigmatic narrative, and captivating puzzles. You control a boy in a dilapidated castle who forms a bond with a giant cat-dog creature called Trico. Together, you must collaborate to solve puzzles and find a way out. To me, The Last Guardian is a masterpiece that seamlessly integrates storytelling with gameplay. Unlike many contemporary games, it avoids excessive guidance. It encourages players to solve challenges independently and does an excellent job of making that process inviting. However, this game isn't for everyone. If you prefer games that don't require much thinking, this one might not suit you. At launch, it was one of the most polarizing games, even among critics. Some reviewers awarded it a perfect 10, while others gave it a mere 5. That's a wide disparity, but much like the earlier works of this game's creator, such as Ico, there's a poetic quality to its interactivity. This poetry elevates it beyond what many typically associate with video games. The game is the creation of a visionary. Trico's artificial intelligence and behavior are remarkable, making the creature feel genuinely alive rather than a programmed follower. This design choice works brilliantly. As you advance, you develop a profound connection with Trico, particularly during moments when you're separated. As mentioned, it may not appeal to all, but it's an experience worth having, both as a game and as a work of art. Moving to number 8, we have Stray. Stray may not be the greatest game ever, but it's definitely one everyone should experience. In this game, you play as a cat. Yes, that's the main draw of the game. Don't misunderstand though, the game is genuinely excellent. It features a captivating story and engaging gameplay, executing everything it aims to do perfectly. It also serves as a prime example of how a game doesn't need hundreds of hours of content. The game lasts about 5 hours, but those are a truly memorable 5 hours. It stands out by offering something distinct from typical adventure games. The game boasts highly immersive details, from the environment to its inhabitants. I mentioned the story is strong, and I stand by that. The city you navigate has a rich backstory, and its residents clearly share a bond, sparking curiosity to uncover more. The game weaves intrigue and mystery, drawing you in rapidly. Remarkably, it conveys this narrative from a cat's perspective in a convincing manner. I'm begging the game industry to create more titles like this. Not every game needs to stretch to 60, 70, or even hundreds of hours. I enjoy the great ones that are 100 hours long, but not every game has to follow that model. Stray strikes a perfect balance, not overly long to feel aimless, nor too brief to feel insubstantial. At number 7, we have Okami, a groundbreaking game with distinctive visuals where you take on the role of Amaterasu, a deity wolf. It's reminiscent of Zelda, yet distinctly unique. It pushes boundaries, captivates, and stands as a work of art. The story, rooted in Japanese mythology, is truly remarkable. The art direction, resembling traditional Japanese ink paintings, perfectly complements the game's theme. This visual style isn't just aesthetic, it's woven into the gameplay through creative mechanics, like drawing on the screen to solve puzzles, such as repairing a bridge or cutting through barriers. The game encourages experimentation and problem solving. It's far from a hand-holding experience. Well, perhaps not the complete opposite of hand-holding. There are likely games with even less guidance, but Okami is exceptional. Everyone should definitely give it a try.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that.
Coming in at number 6 is What Remains of Edith Finch. A few entries ago, I mentioned the term opposite of hand-holdy several times. This game sits at the other extreme of that spectrum. When it comes to hand-holding, What Remains of Edith Finch is the most guided game I'd still consider a true game. Excessive hand-holding can feel patronizing, with overly simplistic inputs that become irritating. If you dislike heavy guidance, I can understand why this game might not appeal to you, but I assure you it's exceptional. If you can accept a game with minimal gameplay demands, the story it delivers is absolutely worthwhile. Its mechanics enhance the storytelling rather than obstruct it. This is the kind of game that, if it were a movie, you wouldn't want the narrative interrupted by something like a random song, but it incorporates its elements in a believable and meaningful way. To clarify, I'm not saying the game literally has songs that disrupt the experience. The game features a variety of gameplay styles, all of which serve the outstanding story. You play as Edith Finch, the last surviving member of a supposedly cursed family, as you investigate their history. The game's mechanics adapt to fit the different narratives, which is both daring and impressive. One reason I strongly recommend playing this game is that it takes numerous bold risks and every single one succeeds. It's a stellar example of how to execute its unique approach flawlessly.
Oh no! The rats! Keep away from them!
Amicia, they're everywhere!
At number 5, we have A Plague Tale: Innocence, a medieval game with exceptional storytelling and stunning visuals where you play as a young girl fleeing to protect her brother. It shares many strengths with The Last of Us, but offers a unique emotional depth. While games like The Last of Us or God of War exist, A Plague Tale delivers its own distinct take on this kind of story, and it's outstanding. The game is both heart-wrenching and heartwarming, yet it avoids overly sentimental themes of love's triumph that could weaken its tension, a difficult balance to strike. It excels at making you feel vulnerable. The intense stealth mechanics heighten the emotional impact of the story. Whether dodging soldiers or maneuvering through massive rat swarms, these terrifying challenges emphasize cleverness and quick thinking over combat, though some fighting is involved. You gain as much insight from failures as from successes, which is one of the things I admire about this game. It never feels like it's unfairly punishing you. It's simply an excellent game that everyone should experience. At number 4, continuing with indie games, Inside is another title I consider absolutely flawless. Its visual storytelling, emotional impact, and creative puzzles make it an extraordinary accomplishment. It evokes the same feelings as Limbo did for me. To be clear, Limbo is also an excellent game, but Inside elevates the experience. It presents a nihilistic narrative in stark black and white, providing just enough context to grasp the world while deliberately leaving you puzzled about key details. Questions like, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Who's behind it? Where are we? And why are we controlling this child? Remain unanswered. You may never find those answers, but the world is deeply immersive. The puzzles are meticulously crafted. The game leaves you with a lingering, unsettling mix of horror and a wild curiosity about what's happening. You'll find yourself wondering, but why, long after playing? This game will stay with you for years. At number 3, we have Ghost of Tsushima. This game arguably features the most breathtaking open-world design ever created. With its rolling hills, lush forests, golden trees, and dynamic movement, it feels like a living painting. I know painting in motion is a cliché, but this game is visually stunning. The environment itself guides you, with the wind literally pointing you toward your objectives. It relies heavily on natural visual and audio cues, not just natural as in nature, but also supernatural, since real-world wind doesn't guide you to destinations. This mechanic makes playing the game feel uniquely distinct. While other games may have used similar concepts like the guiding wind, none have done so to this degree. Ghost of Tsushima executes it better than any game before it. Together, these elements craft a deeply immersive, vividly realistic, and lifelike game world. Beyond that, it pays great respect to Japanese storytelling and stylistic traditions. It's a true masterpiece of open-world storytelling, accessible yet undeniably deserving of being called art. Moving to number 2, we have Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. The Soulsborne games are exceptional, but Sekiro streamlines their formula to be less cryptic. It feels both comfortingly familiar and refreshingly new. It reworks the traditional Soulsborne mechanics to focus on timing, parrying, and mastering enemy patterns, all with a distinct tone. The story is conveyed with greater clarity. Unlike the often vague dialogue and mysteries of other Soulsborne titles, Sekiro doesn't rely on cryptic exchanges that require piecing together. It's more approachable while incorporating new mechanics that expand on the Soulsborne foundation. At first glance, you might think Sekiro is nearly identical to Dark Souls, but closer inspection or gameplay reveals it's a distinctly different experience. While Soulsborne games center storytelling and progression around exploration, Sekiro introduces a grappling hook for verticality, achieving a similar effect in a brilliant, unique way. Sekiro is unconventional and innovative. Innovating after defining an entire genre is no small feat, especially for From Software, a company that has pioneered multiple genres. While it may be considered a Souls game, it's arguably closer to the Tenchu genre they also established. Despite being more straightforward than other titles, it avoids being overly esoteric. Ultimately, it's a fantastic, rewarding, and challenging experience. Finally, at number 1, we have Control, a surreal masterpiece from Remedy, one of my favorite developers. It breaks from tradition, weaving together supernatural mysteries, psychic abilities, non-linear storytelling, and all sorts of strange elements. For instance, there's a floppy disk secured because it holds telekinesis, utterly bizarre and incredibly fun. The story is highly captivating. The storytelling is fascinating, with the main character constantly speaking aloud, engaging in a dialogue with an unknown entity. The game raises countless questions, and I honestly don't want them resolved because they spark my imagination in so many directions, which is a big part of the enjoyment. To be clear, the story itself is excellent, but Control's weirdness is part of its charm. It pushes the boundaries of what video games can achieve in surprising ways. I love its exploration elements. Unlike most games that guide players toward checkpoints, Control lets you freely navigate the oldest house in a way that feels purposeful, not aimless. It's simply fantastic, and I adore this game. No matter how many times I replay it, each experience feels fresh and like venturing into uncharted territory. That's why I love it.